Okay, so designing experiences for AI product design. But before we get into that, I'd like to introduce myself. So my name's Bernard, George Barsley, but everyone calls me Bern, and I design stuff. So for 20 years, I've moved through every layer of digital design, from art direction to UI design, UX, service, project strategy. And here's my route from Little Burn. I've been an art student, unemployed, junior, senior, a director, a freelancer, and a co-founder. And in all of those experiences, one of the things the thing that really has driven my curiosity and desire for this particular subject is that I just like to make stuff. Now, if you go onto LinkedIn, lots of people will describe themselves as some omni-channel, full stack, uh, ultimate employee. And they're all the buzzwords, but I just fundamentally really enjoy making things. And I'm going to share some of that stuff with you today. So, who are you? So, obviously, I can't see all of you at the moment, so I'm just talking into a screen at the moment. But please share where you're from. Myself, this office, this garden studio, I'm in Oxford, England, and this is where I work from every single day. But please drop in the comments where you are, so during Q&A, I can get a sense of who you all are and where you are listening from. So what have I done? So I've worked in all different types of fields, from high street fintech through to digital asset exchanges. I've done startups in the delivery space. I've done aspirational health products. But I've also done electricians. I've also done plumbers. I've also done solar panel people, right through to products that have been funded by Sequoia, and right through to my current projects at the moment, which is Heal, which is a music sound therapy app. And I'll be touching upon these later on in this session, and I'll be diving into the design files and showing you some of the challenges that we faced, some of the challenges we didn't solve, some of the challenges we did solve, and the nitty-gritty of what it's like to actually design at the coalface. But before we get to these products, oh, by the way, here's just a little summary of what we were saying there. But before we get to any of those things, just a little bit of context. When I started designing, and we used to use Photoshop, which is such an old school piece of technology in regards to product design. Design used to look like this. These are things that I actually made for HSBC in the noughties. And it's quite astonishing to look back in time and see that this is what we used to actually be doing compared to what we're going to be talking about today. But it gives us some context. This was a blog that I actually presented to the Office of Fair Training for their internal intranet. Quite astonishing to look back at these things. Corporate design, and a website for a dance school. And these were all done in like 2004, 5, 6. And these look old school right now, okay? I get that. But there was something about them at the time, which was that the internet was exciting and it was innovative. And this is what it looked like. We were exploring newfound frontiers every single day. We didn't quite understand how to deal with it, but we would use our experience, our intrepidation, and our nous to work out how to do the best possible design. Repetition in terms of known patterns, there wasn't any. We were making it up every single day. So the internet was exciting. But of course, experiences move on, circa to present day. And have a look at this new design that we've just seen being released by Airbnb. Beautiful combination of really luxurious icons and a very clean, classic design that is quite modern and, you see quite a lot as well, but it's mixed up with these really interesting icons. So things have moved on quite a bit. And if you look at this, you can see Nike, iPhone, Revolut, Disney, Netflix. Design's moved on a lot, but it's stabilized. and it's boxed innovation. Everything is balanced. We can rely on existing paradigms and solve problems, which is a very useful thing, and we will go into that. And if we look at this Dribble minimal UI design systems, we can see that everything is very high quality. There's very aspirational design here, but everything is looking similar. This is an interesting point. If I look at Nike and iPhone, one's a tech company, one is selling shoes, they look the same. If I look at Disney and Netflix, they look the same. Revolut, albeit quite a modern design, is kind of familiar. And if you were to scroll down that particular page, you would note that it has the same interactions and animations that you would expect to see on an Apple site. What's happening here? Innovation has decreased and repetition of patterns has increased. Now, that is useful because it means that you can solve problems using existing patterns. And then it all changed. And what do we think happened? Write in the notes if you've got an idea. This happened. AI happened. And this has changed everything. We are now moving overnight from a small amount of innovation in each project and repetition to innovation happening on a daily, hourly, and sometimes minute by minute basis on projects. Now, little bit scary, also wildly exciting. And we're going to go a little bit more into that. So, we now live in a world where every day a new AI product comes out. A new way to do something, a new way to do it faster. Some will survive, some won't. Some will be integrated into our stack, some won't. And, we'll recognize some of these icons. As an aside, why all AI product icons are circular, I don't know. But for a piece of technology that's meant to be a revolution, it's quite hilarious that we're basically using the same brand styling across all of them. But that is another topic for another session. But if you're using tools, how about drop a couple in the notes beyond just ChatGPT and share some of the tools you've been using recently to get a sense of what we're using. Now, that's the intro. Now let's move on a little bit and drop into some projects that I've been working on in the past. So, Telescope. 2.5 years ago, I was recommended to a company by a company I was already working with as a product designer for them. And Telescope essentially is an AI sales assistant that performs prospecting on autopilot. Essentially, what that means is that in the prospecting space, the way it works is that you will have a sales representative working on behalf of a company, and they will dive into a huge database of names and phone numbers, and they will fundamentally filter that database down to a select number of people, and then they will contact them directly. It's a numbers game, and it's boring. It's the worst part of the sales, or it's reputed as one of the worst parts of the sales process, finding those SDRs. No, not the SDRs, ICPs, which is your ideal customer profile. What Telescope does is essentially, or what the idea was you could have a Google search bar and you just write in who you're after, and the AI would generate a list for you, and then you would have the list of who you need to contact. Simple idea, right? So I'm going to go through some of the experiences we had designing this product. So I'm going to go on to onboarding and an ICP refinement. ICP is ideal customer profile. So it's the person that you're trying to actually locate, basically. So I'm going to close down my file here, and I'm going to go, and I've prepared a Figma board right here. So hopefully all of you can still see this. and I'm going to dive straight into some of the experiences that we had. Thanks, guys. So on my Figma board here, no, I don't want to start a new file. This one. We have 3 streams of work that I'm going to go through. So number 1 is onboarding and first campaign, version 1, which is our first go at it. Onboarding and first campaign, version 2, which is when we decided to build it because technology had changed so fast in the space of a month. We suddenly could do a lot more things than we realized we could do. And then ICP refinement, which is your ideal customer profile refinement, as in how do we really drill down onto that particular person or type of person and build a list. So quite often when you start a project, especially in a startup, the process of starting a project will be, how would I describe it? Not textbook. I had a conversation with a founder on a Tuesday, and then on a Wednesday, I was sitting in a product meeting solving the first problem they had. There was no real introduction to the company or that much of an introduction to the company. It was just, here's a problem we need to ship by the end of the afternoon, well, under the week, and we need solutions for it. I couldn't design using what I would think is a nice design system. I had to work with an incumbent design system. So I had to learn the incumbent design system and work within that to be able to start solving problems. So the first thing you're going to see is me working with an incumbent design system, working out how to do an onboarding section with, at the time, which was about 2.5 years ago, so I'm going to just zoom straight in. So bear in mind that ChatGPT had really only just come out. No one was using prompting in any tools, and we didn't know if we could even build a prompting. So we had to try and find a way to extract the details from a user that would begin building the ICP, but we couldn't use prompting because we didn't know we could do it yet, or work out how we could do it yet, or even have the technical resource to do it. So this is how we went about it in the first instance. So after signing up on the platform, you'd be faced with problem number 1, which is we wanted to tell a user that they would create a campaign and that we wanted to connect to their Google account. If we can connect to their Google account, then we would be able to scan their emails of all of their previous correspondence and build a profile of the type of people they talk to. So we need to convince them here that they have to connect to Google. And if they don't connect to Gmail, they won't be able to proceed. So I was faced with that in the very first day on the job. And I literally had to do this design in the space of about 2 hours. And we built it in about 2 days. And we managed to create a scenario where people were a little bit more confident about signing up to Gmail or using their Gmail account. Clear CTA. Then you get a scenario where you'll use a Google like almost modal will appear. I can't affect what this looks like, so you just basically use the incumbent UI given to you by Google. Then once you create an account, this will take about a minute, and we need to basically tell someone in that period of time that something is happening. So we don't want to just have a simple kind of loading bar that we're using to, and in the background something's being created. We can use that period of time to actually explain what's happening to them and basically build confidence. So you can see here, we'd have a rotating message here, analyzing the previous outbound emails. Are you ready? Boom. And then what we would have is an old school field here, and we'd ask a question. And at this point, we are feeding the AI model information to build the ICP. And the first thing we want to know is, what sector are you working in? Are you working in tech? Are you working in pharmaceuticals? And therefore, you're able to write anything that you want in here. But remember, we can't prompt yet. So we have to rely on a user understanding that they can just put a single word in, which is a reasonable expectation, but there's still a lot of space for this to go wrong. And we found that. So we support the user by putting pills along the bottom of the field. And what we discovered here is that they wouldn't, they very rarely put in a unique criteria. They'd actually rely on the pills. Not much we can do about that. So we just basically put a second like word underneath just to say a second, not word, a second, it's called stand first or H2, enter keywords and find potential customers to just try and provoke them to write a more detailed description of the space they're working in. Once they've done this, this field will highlight and the magnifying glass will basically turn purple and you'll be able to hit that. So we move on to the next section and you can see that. So your pills have formed into these sort of almost like encapsulated bodies with the ability to delete them. And that gives you the sense that this is ready to go. Select, you can either hit return or you hit the magnifying glass. And I had to work then with this listing that had already been built using a previous design. And it was clunky, but we had it. So what we had here is learning to work with incumbent designs. It's something you will come across quite regularly. This particular incumbent piece of design is a listing that exists inside a window. So this is a window with all the types of companies that potentially fall within the criteria you're looking for. And you would then select these companies. And once you've selected a number of companies that are the kind of companies you're looking for, you would then hit next. What is your ideal role you're looking for? Are you looking for a manager? Are you looking for a customer support specialist? You fill this out. Now, this all seems pretty old school, but 2.5 years ago, we couldn't build the prompting, which is now you're seeing every single tool. And you'll see that a little bit later, how we solved that. But it was a struggle to actually work out how to do this using existing patterns. But what we were doing was relying on existing patterns to solve a new paradigm in terms of training an AI model. So what are your ideal role? Fill out the role. Then you get another list of roles. You select these, and I'll start whizzing through these. You would then select these, drag them into this bucket. Next steps. We then push people into outbound. And outbound, for those who don't know, is essentially if you are working in sales, outbound is when you're going to push out all of your correspondence to potential buyers. So that might be via text, it might be via email, you might be just phoning people direct. But outbound in email works in a way where you create 3 templates of like the first time you correspond with someone, the second time, and the third follow-up. And that's when you're creating essentially your email outbound campaign. And the program would present you with an email that is pre-written for you. You'll be able to edit it a little bit and then drag these elements into various positions if you want to have like bespoke name or company. Once you've created your outbound, you go to review campaign and boom, you have your campaign overview and you create it. And that's the first the way we did it. And what we discovered with this is that this was just a painful and clunky way to do it. And I'm going to go on to version 2 and show you how you do it when we discover new technology. But in the meantime, I'm just going to double check some of the chat. Here we go. So Cynthia, this is predominantly how to design an AI tool rather than to use AI to design a tool. So it's designing AI tools just for your how were you able to build enough trust with the users for them to share their Gmail history and emails for you to scan? So really good question. How do you build trust? So I'll show in the later designs where nicer design and better wording helped build trust, but we fundamentally struggled to get people to connect to their Gmail. And in the end, we found that we had to have a 20-minute in-person onboarding session with new customers. Um, it's just a unique scenario that if you're connecting to people's personal histories, or in some cases, they might have a CRM, which is like essentially a system that controls like sales funnels. People just they won't do it. It doesn't matter how nice you design something, they just won't connect to it. And you need that personal kind of one-to-one session with someone to onboard them onto a tool. I don't think that is for every tool, but for this, that's what we had to do basically. Thanks, Sam Ra. If there's just some others. Hi, everyone. London. Ooh, London. AI. Ooh, Bristol. Ooh, Rambear. Yes, I did. I designed the Rambear, but 20 years ago. Switching to design, studying finance. Whoop. Okay, awesome. All right, so lovely to have that. I'm just going to shut that down for the time being. So that was the first way, that was the first time we kind of like tackled feeding, like training an AI model. And it's a little bit, it was very clunky basically, but we just used a step-by-step scenario filling in fields to train the AI. And then I remember one day, and we talked round in circles around, wouldn't it just be great if you could just write into a field and you could just write a sentence? You know, surely we can do that. And then one day, obviously, the CTO comes back and says he's been working on it all evening, and maybe we can actually do that. So overnight, we went from this staged process where you had individual fields to we had the ability to actually write prompts, which 2.5 years ago was just wild, basically, to go overnight. And it's a real indication when I was referring to um, innovation to realize that overnight you could suddenly move from just a stepped experience to you can just write and now you're going to redesign the whole program. The next couple of weeks was just mind blowing. And, you know, some people would find that stressful. But honestly, in this scenario, I thought it was really exciting, actually, really exciting. And we could combine what we were seeing in ChatGPT with um, existing paradigms that we knew could work. And this is what we came up in the second way. So in the second wave, we went from incumbent design to, after some persuasion from myself, to moving to a more of a branded, slicker looking product that when someone lands on the page, they're immediately in a position, or we are immediately able to begin building trust. So before they even enter their email, the website looks slick, and this is what you can see here. So they arrive here and we have a slightly more up-to-date, more modern looking screen. And at this point, we can offer a free account or a pro account. It's set to pro account, free account. We have like a sign up to Google button. It's just much more slicker looking, and that builds confidence. If someone still doesn't want to actually sign up, again, we had a marketing person that would follow up and actually say, do you want me to walk you through a 20-minute session to sign up? So we basically had twofold working on it. And once you collect, again, we rely on the existing paradigms where we knew before, but with slightly slicker design. We start loading up a new session. We tell people what's happening. In these two instances, when I've been designing it, this is just two examples. So if I was showing this to stakeholders in a company, I would say I would lean on loading bars that I know we can essentially take off the shelf, but we can stylize so it doesn't means that developers are not going to spend too much time, but at the same time there will be elements on them we can stylize, and it gives people choice. And we come into a point where we have essentially a an overview page where it welcomes a user and we push them straight into the first campaign. And at this point, we are now going to train an AI model in the ICP that the user is looking for. So first of all, what you won't have noticed, but it is in the T's and C's, is that by putting in the email, we developed a technology that not only can actually look in someone's email, but if they put in their company email, the model will go to the company's website and it will scan the content on their company website and then build an ICP from that, which means that we are already starting to create the ideal customer profile before they're even into the point of giving us any prompts. At this point, we also tell them that. So our AI is currently understanding your ideal customer. We're using this website. If someone doesn't want to use this and they feel like we're invading their privacy, we give them the ability to jump out of this. But it's a little bit down and out of the way, basically. Or they can enter a different website. This is just an illustration of almost an organic moving animation. It's smoke and mirrors. It's obviously not connected to anything AI, but it gives people the essence that even though it's not connected to the AI actually moving, they feel like something's happening. Boom, 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 in case they want to put a new website in. Almost done. So we're continually informing people that the process is happening, and in the background we are building out an ICP, and straight away we can then begin to lean on prompting. And this again, honestly, 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago, mind blown. We could also, we were pretty confident that, you know, the way like ChatGPT was building its UI systems in terms of field and suggestions was working well, because we were also seeing things like Claude were relying on those kind of paradigms as well. So in a short period of time, we were seeing paradigms in terms of prompting and teaching AI systems that were being used across multiple products, and we could lean on those as well. So in this instance, we can give people the chance to prompt. So, hi, John, let's start defining your ideal company. How would you like to describe them? If they don't want to do that, there's suggestions underneath that have been built out from scanning their website. So we might be right here, and they'll just be able to say, yes, that is, I'm looking for marketing leaders in SaaS and IT services, boom. And that's it. And they're straight through to starting to select people. Or if none of those are correct, we can start prompting. And as I know many of you will be using AI tools right now, we don't have to give single words anymore. Someone can just write a paragraph. And what's so wonderful about this technology, as we discovered and we know more about now, is that we can ask an open-ended question and then have the AI analyze that and then ask any questions following up on that to fill any holes. So obviously I showcase how this would feel. Just as a general note here, the reasons why you see these individual panels is because I am showing the developers how a field reacts. And it also showcases to stakeholders what's happening. So when I'm talking to a CEO about how their product's going to work, I can talk about the individual periods, individual instances between each section. I can also talk about the timings, the way something animates on. And I can also provide colors, spacing, and as much detail as possible to the developers when they come to build it. Hence why you see these very interstitial screens. And of course, we now know this, where you can basically begin to fill out a prompt. Dun, 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 dun. And in this scenario here, you can see that the AI allowed us to fill in these holes. So if the person hasn't written in, hasn't like specified a particular location, AI can help with that. So I'll squiz to the end here. So you go through this prompting. As a designer, you also get these moments where obviously you're thinking about the experience, you're thinking about how the speed of these things, and you also can focus in on little details like this. So, this might be we're really familiar with these little patterns down here. You'd also take time out to animate those as well and provide these little assets for the developers as well. Bum, 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 bum. I'm going to go through these. Once you've completed, or once the model, great, will start compiling prospects for you. This will fade away, loading screen, process complete, and we push people into this screen. So obviously I've got a little bit more to go on this particular section. If you've got questions, start putting them in again. And, at the end of this, I'm happy to answer more questions on this particular project. So one of the things that we had realized when we did the first installment was that a super long experience that's on Rails is just boring for people to fill out that information. It's too mind-numbing and slow, and didn't feel particularly futuristic, and didn't feel like AI was helping people. And the whole point of Telescope was to, how would I put it? Make prospecting fun and quick, basically. And it was the quality of the prospects that the AI found that was going to be its USP versus another like tool that would just vertically chain out numbers. So what we went for was essentially a sort of dating app style approach where we would present individual individual potential prospects based on the ICP that were being created using prompts. And the user would be able to look at this card, which has been compiled from several different databases, which using AI allows us to create a synopsis of this potential ICP. You can then review this, see if it's the right kind of person. And then on the right-hand side here, you'll be able to see a whole bunch of UI. These are tools that we're kind of very familiar with. Do you like them? Do you reject them? Do you skip them? But they're actually they're helping you to train the UI. So if you like the look of this person, so you like the company that they're from, you like the role they have, do you like their previous experiences, you'll be able to see if we've got their phone number, you'll be able to visit a website. If this looks good and you add this to your list, this will create the first person in your initial list. And it will also tell, it will also tell the AI that this is a good person. So the next person you will see is more likely to be the right type of person. If you reject this person, then again, we're going down the road of saying how, this isn't who we want. Okay. Who do you want? And you begin training the AI using these cards. Right. I can see a couple of questions have just popped in there. Chat. Okay. Good. How big was your initial user testing? How did you constantly evolve to keep up with the AI space in your UX design and refinement cycles? Okay, so we were tracking who would use the app, and the CEO would literally contact them on LinkedIn and would ask for feedback. So it was literally that straightforward. We didn't have a user pool like in another room that we just like get into, or it wasn't which happens more often than not. I've given it to my sister and she says it's good. It was literally going direct to people that we've tracked, introducing ourselves and asking for feedback. And the CEO was really quite relentless on that. And we created a Slack channel on our in Slack that was feedback, and we'd get 2, 3, 4 nuggets of feedback per day from users that we had gone directly to and asked them for feedback. and and we did that for a year and a half. So we became really in line with what people were telling us. Because obviously to this point we've kind of we've we've put all our we've put all our chips in one bag and made a bet. Um, so that's how we did it basically. Uh, APIs, you'd have to talk to the CTO, I'm afraid, for that one. I'm just the design guy. So I'm afraid I can't answer that one, Samra. Um, which data sources were you using to fetch relevant? So there's several. You can just basically buy access to data sources. And the more, again, I'd have to go back into my records for the exact ones, but they can go from buying them fundamentally, the more money you spend, the more likely they're going to be up to date. That's the one thing we found there. Uh, yeah, buy data sources. So there are companies that their whole job is to have like 12 million profiles where they've scraped the internet and they'll have names, people's positions, numbers, and so forth. And you can buy access to that data. Did you use any AI tools to design this AI app? No, I didn't. It was 2.5 years ago. It was all very new. So I was using just my experience as a designer to do it. It's things have changed slightly different. I think I'm going to touch a little bit on that a little bit later. Um, but no, I was sitting in a team building an AI tool, massively excited about it, using still the fundamentals of designing products to create it. And the developers I was working with um, were still coding as if they are coding a normal product. The only difference was they were using Cursor, which speeds up things a great deal, apparently. But fundamentally, they were doing so many bug fixes. Um, Everything you see on Instagram where someone creates an app by pressing a button, sitting back, that just is not real. That's just not real. It's still like 4 or 5 developers working 12 hours a day to get the thing to do what you need it to do. So yeah, that's how it was 2.5 years ago. A bit different now, but still. Uh, Say if you were looking at building a personal chatbot, would you recommend refine every week, also one-to-one? How did you know it's extremely good enough to stop refining to finally launch? Oh God, yeah, great question. Um, the more projects you do, that you will begin to build an instinct to when something feels right. So there is no exact criteria as to we have reached one. Now let's just put it out there. You will My advice is to continually build projects, keep building, and you will develop your instincts. And then you'll get to a point where you'll say, I'm happy to soft launch this and test it, or I'm confident that we can go all in on this. But you only develop that by consistently working on projects. You'll fundamentally know when something's right. And don't be afraid to actually ask colleagues of yours for, if you're not sure, ask a colleague and, ask for some honest advice. And that can sometimes give you the best lead of whether you think it's worthy of a soft launch or not. What was your MVP conditions? I'm building this chatbot but have no UX experience, proving more just web designer. Again, were my conditions fundamentally were, if I was to give this to a colleague of mine and say that I designed this, would I be proud and sit back and let them use it without saying anything? Or would I have to say, well, the design's not there yet, but oh yeah, that bit's not working yet. Hold on a second. Actually, do you mind if you come back tomorrow? We'll have made that. If I'm doing that, it's not ready to go. If I can hand it to someone and they get it straight away, then it's ready to go. And that's how I judge it, basically. Uh, Again, how you got users to input their Gmails and how would you use Finder? Okay, so I'll just go back to this and then we'll move on to the next bit. Thank you for the questions, by the way. I really appreciate them. So, so this is how we did it. It's just a sign up button, basically. And what it will do in this interstitial screen here is it will bring up a piece of UI that is essentially from Google, which you can't control, and it will be a list of all of your Gmail accounts, and you select it, basically. So that's how we do it. And we ask them to sign up their work email. And that was it. That was it. That was fine. That's all it was. And if they can't put their work email in, we they can't sign up to the platform, and they'd be able to contact us, and we'd be able to then, the likelihood is that we would track that, and then we'd reach out to them and say, we recommend you do this. It will be in your best interest, and they'd push sales on them. That's how we did it. So I'm just gonna thank you for all the questions. I am mindful of the time, so I'm just gonna go to focus on ICP refinement. So to this particular point, boom, 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 we have this card where we highlight this particular lead, and the user is adding and subtracting, or adding or rejecting users, or skipping, which could be they're kind of good, but not quite right, which is still a positive input. We had gone down the road of a very complex input screen on the right-hand side that if you rejected someone, they could have up to several different things they could click to tell us whether it's the wrong company, whether they wrong company, wrong destination. But we just discovered that it was just too fiddly and too complex, and we were able to just simplify it down to add, reject, or skip, and people were willing to go through that. If they reject 5 times, so we're just not getting the right type of profiles in front of them, you'll see that we've got a drawer on the left-hand side. So a drawer is essentially a panel that can open up. And we've got a little kind of indication that something's in here, but we can automatically open this up and give people a summary of their ICP. And you can see down here, you've got essentially, we've got a summary, special criteria. So that's an ability to write something that is very unique about your ICP, and again, train the model that little bit further. And then we've got all of the details, worldwide, company, etc., etc., etc. And if we just haven't been able to capture enough information from the prompt, or someone just doesn't want to write a prompt that's like 3 paragraphs long, and we've just starting to show the wrong, like we're just not getting it quite right, someone can now just delve into the details and in a very kind of classic way, fill out a form, update their ICP, and all being well, we'll start to show them more relevant. And then finally we were ready to start, we could then put prompting in there. So previously feels quite old school to fill out a form, though people are used to it. And then we got to the point where they can either look at their ICP, or you can have an ongoing prompting on the left-hand side. So then you've just got an ongoing conversation where you can then say, can you expand this search from Germany to Belgium as well? Can we look for companies that are between 1 and 5? Actually, could it be 1 and 10 million? And you can just continually refine the ICP using a prompt and then adding people to your list. And then once you get to 5, we have enough positive leads to then just roll out a list of like thousands of people that are similar to that ICP, create a list of people that sales representatives that can go and contact, and then they can then put it into their CRM and begin an outbound campaign. All seems relatively straightforward, but before this was all very much a manual job and could take days. And we got this down to a couple of minutes, basically, and you can see us generating a list, and it's a straightforward list. And you'd be able to download that list and do what you want with it. Now, previously, just to wrap up on this one, we noticed that we had an outbound that was locked, that was attached to the end of this experience. We found that that was just too much for people. And the initial launch of this to get traction was just essentially download a list because we couldn't move people off their current CRMs. Their companies would have spent millions of pounds implementing a CRM into their company infrastructure. Getting someone to move off that into a little kind of startup, plucky startup, was never going to happen. So we de-emphasized outbound and just emphasized what we were good at, which is creating a list, and that's what we were selling. So that's like one experience of like AI or designing for AI I had. Just to summarize, we went in not knowing how to do it. It was very, very new. But across a year, the technology moved so quickly, we had to be agile enough to just respond to it and be willing to like change how we did things week by week, which is a huge shift from where I think design products were like before AI dropped a couple of years ago. So please, if you've got any further questions about this, start dropping them in. I'll be happy to answer them. And then I'm going to show you a second project we worked on, which is, again, designing for a program, an application which is entirely impossible without AI, but we approached it in a very different way. So again, to summarize, Telescope, right at the beginning of, actually, let me just close this down and I'll open up my presentation. So onboarding and ICP refinement, Q&A, drop in some questions. Just make sure actually I've covered off. Chat's good. Okay, so I'll move on to our next program. So at the beginning of this new technological revolution a couple of years ago, everyone wanted to be on the bandwagon even more than they are now. And so every single person had to say they were using AI, and it had to look like it was using AI as well. So hence why you've got these sort of planetoid shapes, these glows. It's slightly futuristic. You've got this, what is now pretty common use of purple in AI products. But at the time we were making that up, and there was like only two that were similar to that. But it had to scream AI. Now we're 2, 3 years into this journey now, and we're all kind of aware that things are using AI, and we are, nearly every product I see every day is going to have some kind of prompt, an ability to affect shape or form with a field, and you understand that AI is already interwoven into this technology. I don't need to have it screamed at me, and I don't need it to have it like embedded in every single thing I do. I just need to interact with it when I need to. But fundamentally, I'm a human and I'm after a particular type of product. So the product we're working on at the moment is Heal, and Heal is a music sound therapy app. And Heal uses AI and real-time biometrics to analyze how you feel and deliver personalized music that regulates your emotions. So when you use Spotify and you use SoundCloud, you put in the music that you want to listen to. You might listen to a playlist of a particular style you like. I want some chilled, I want some death metal, whatever. You select it, and then when your mood changes, you select different types of music. With Heal, we're able to measure how you're feeling using your HRV rate via your wearable, and we can monitor how you're feeling, and we can start to affect playlists to take you in the right direction you want to go in terms of how you're feeling. The design is sort of slightly retro, slightly Blade Runner, a bit futuristic. We've used AI to create the photography because we are self-funded. So we've had to come up with photography that I think professionals will know that well, it's not in photography, AI generated imagery that will professionals know that we've had to use that. But I think at cursory glance, this could look like studio photography to everyday people. And where's the AI? Well, we don't want to show the AI. Right, let me show this. We want to, and there's only really one bit in it. So let me go to here and I'll show you that particular bit. So here's a board that I've made of the website, which I won't go into too much because that's not necessarily what we're covering today. But that gives you a sense of, brand, website positioning. And then you can see these app screens. And fundamentally, Heal works like most music apps. So if we strip away the brand, when we started designing this a couple of months ago, I went to Mobin, which is basically essentially a massive library of different app designs. I went and I had SoundCloud and I had Spotify, and I had no experience of designing a music app before, but I had designed every other thing under the sun. And I learned from existing apps how these system work. That's how I did it. The actual aesthetics, this kind of dark, moody, neon thing, that was created separately and gives it a unique identity. And then it's the AI bit, which we wanted to keep to a minimal, basically. And I'll delve into that because that is fundamentally the point of this particular thing. So you have this home screen, and it introduces itself and it says, this is your current HRV rate, which is basically like the time between your heartbeats, and your wearable can measure that, and how it fluctuates fundamentally we can measure that, and we can get a sense if you're stressed or not. So currently we can feed back to the user that they're fine. This is a little animation. You can just randomly go into playlists if you want to, but how would you like to feel? And bear in mind, if we think back to Telescope, how all that work that we had to do to feed an LLM, like all that information, we've now stripped it down to just something as simple as this, which is, how do you currently feel? I'm happy, I'm feeling anxious, sad, unmotivated, unstimulated. If none of these pills cover off how you're feeling, because you don't necessarily need to be sad, you could be, I'm really happy, but I want to get like pumped up to go for a run, or I am feeling anxious and I need to feel calm. It doesn't have to be negative. If none of these fulfill how you're currently feeling, you can hit the icon here and that will pull up essentially a keyboard, and you'll be able to then write in a single word about how you feel. And then much like booking a train ticket, which was the analogy I used when we came up with this, I you have your current position, and then it's what's your destination, and how would you like to feel? So I like to feel happy, calm, energetic, emotional, focused. Again, if we don't cover off any of these, you can pull up the keyboard, you write in where you would like to end up. We then have a loading period where we explain to the user what's happening. We're essentially creating unique playlists that will start in one emotional place and take someone to another emotional place. And these will then be bespoke playlists that do that in the style of music that people like, which they have stipulated on the onboarding. They can then listen to that, they can go on a journey, and at the end of that, we can feed back a screen here where we've measured them and we can tell them that their HRV rate has improved or not. We can also, in this particular thing, which I'm going to basically design on Friday, because I talked about it to the CEO yesterday afternoon, and found out from the guy who's writing the LLM on Friday, that last Friday, and this is how fast these things move, is that is one point. That's like one journey, one emotional flight path. But if they get to where they want to get to, say they get someone's calm, but they want to continue, we can drop a notification onto their home screen or their mobile, or they can open up their app and we can basically have an overlay and then ask them where would be their next emotional point that they would like to get to. And you would feedback this same screen and that would say, I want to go here. And so you're starting to put these flags in the sand in terms of people's emotions, about how they're feeling. And then we can take them to different places. We just need single input. and then we can curate these playlists to change and move from one type of song, change a little bit into the next type of song, change a little bit into the next type of song, and take them to that new emotional state. That just from the prompting, we couldn't do obviously a couple of years ago. And now this is just very simple, very straightforward UI, but doing something very powerful. In the background, the AI is able to scan a playlist. Oh no, it's able to scan a database of 10,000 songs, go into every single song, write a profile of that particular song in terms of its beat, its tone, its melodies, give it a score, and then using that profile every single song, and then select the right song that has a slight change in the melody, a slight change in the beats to create this playlist that takes people in these different directions. And that is, very simple UI, but it's doing some very powerful stuff in the background. Again, please start dropping questions in on this. I'd be more than happy to answer them. And then just generally, that's where we really interact and we train with the AI. The rest, and it is worth picking this up. Again, I repeat, I hadn't designed a music app. This didn't stop me doing it. I just used my experience doing other products to then look at existing products and Mobin and essentially take them apart, understand them, and take the bits that I knew we needed to create this particular app. And then my experience in other products in terms of like Telescope and other sort of LMMs that I've helped design systems around to help train them, create what is fundamentally a very simple interface, but doing something very powerful. So here, the big difference is doesn't have to look like you're doing AI to be doing a lot of AI. Where Telescope, we really wanted to scream that we're doing AI. So two kind of big differences there. Just check how we're doing on chat. Let's have a look. Thanks for these. Heal sounds amazing. I'd love to try. Yeah, me too. It's going to go live in about 6 weeks. I can't wait. How do you ensure that what the app is serving the user is right just by wearable info? So in the onboarding, someone will be able to select their music preferences. So they'll be able to select the music preference. So that's one thing in terms of the making sure it's stuff they like. Yes. Second, I'll get onto that next question. Someone doesn't necessarily have to create a playlist. We will just serve them playlists that are just like from whale music through to alternative rock through to anything. So someone, if they just want to listen to indie music, we will give them indie music. Is it connected to Spotify? Yes. So if someone has a Spotify Pro account and that's the music they like listening to, you will be able to essentially just be able to play it through Heal, but we will be able to give you biometric results to tell you how you're being affected by it. Or you can go on journeys where we'll be able to create something curated for you. So did you work with psychologists to analyze effects of music on users? Yeah, so my CEO is a music producer and he did a lot of research for 2 years into this subject matter, basically to be confident enough that this would have an effect. And we are on a NHS innovation program with this particular app. So yeah, we do have specialists advising us that what we're doing has a genuine effect on people. Yeah, basically. How are apps differing in web-based LMMs? What are the crux of LMM used to consider help training of data? Okay, how are apps differing? Okay, so I think it's with this, oh, Hamlet, and if you were to sum up modern AI design theme in terms of color, style, fonts, what notes would you give? Thanks. Okay, that's two good ones. Okay, thanks, Samra. I'll start with the top one. I'm going to actually show regarding this in terms of modern AI design, I'm going to show some like designs of like recent design trends that I'm seeing, and that I think that will touch upon that particular point there. And how are apps differing in West? I think fundamentally you have more more space uh, to play with in terms of web-based LLMs. I just find it quite practical personally, because if you're building a SaaS system, you're going to have you'll be able to present more tools to someone. So you're going to have a more of a smorgasbord of different types of tools. Whereas and the deal there is how to get them to be balanced with each other without overwhelming the user into. So you need to focus on how to keep people focused on individual experiences. Where with a phone, it's still fundamentally the same. Because of the size of the phone, you can only serve people one thing at a time. Um, and it means that you have a very focused view. That would be my main kind of takeaway at the moment, that it's in some ways easier to design a phone experience because you're just looking at a single screen. But if you look at a SaaS product, it's just this kind of just it will be just shouting so many different things at you, and the skill will be to how to balance that all together and draw attention to the important aspects on the screen. Um, how any legal systems when using integrated platform that had where when using other into yeah yeah so we you have to in all the time you will be integrating with other platforms and other services, and you fundamentally have to approach them, as if it's like a business. You won't be secretly approaching them. You will literally have to talk one-on-one with a person, or they'll have a lot of documentation that gives you what you can and can't do. And specifically with Spotify, we've had to really work quite closely with them because they very, very recently closed off their ability to uh, essentially get a HRV rating from their music. There was some technicality that they had literally closed off about 3 months ago. And so you just have to work hand in hand with them, and they'll be very clear what you can and can't do. And a lot of the work in the background will be integrations, basically. Myself, I'm a crayon guy. I'm making it look cool, but I'm still sitting on meetings where there'll be three very intelligent devs who've just spent 3 weeks just connecting just one integration. It's slow, it's long. That's the reality of it. And yeah, you just have to basically comply. If you want their services, you have to comply. Um, okay, so thank you for just make sure I haven't got any. Great to have you. Switch to fulfilling product design career with tailored support and expert career guide. Okay, this is just some stuff, not to worry about that. Sorry if I've missed anything. So I'm just gonna move towards the uh, bu- 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 so hot takes. So you saw this earlier in the day. Let me put this up here. Uh, art student, unemployed, junior, senior director, freelancer. This is a very linear path. This has just been now topsy-turvy. With AI and designing for AI, I feel like a junior designer most days. And that's fine. It's cool. It's exciting. Uh, how we design for AI is still in its infancy, but best practice will lean on already grounded methodologies and ongoing research. So don't be afraid to use what works, and then pepper it with some innovative ideas. Don't be afraid to experiment. Getting things wrong is okay, like it's fundamental. The age of automation, in an age of automation, thinking and insight are your ultimate tools. So we are getting quicker and quicker at being able to produce designs, even if you're building them by hand, like I like to do. Um, but fundamentally, thinking about it and insight and research are going to inform your decisions, are going to be your most important tool going forward. Embrace disruption, we're at best when challenged. AI product and trends. So just to cover off, so where we've just come from in terms of how things look is we've just gone through a long period of like minimal design, and that's fine. Like minimal design is still a really, really useful approach to solving tools, and it still will go forward as a very, very useful tool. But I think we're going to be seeing some changes coming up. And if we start to look at just Airbnb, which I looked at earlier today. Um, if you can see these animation, these like icons, a couple of years ago, if a year ago, these would be minimal. We're now seeing much more luxurious design themes appear in products. And this you can see is there's a lot of work going in it. Some of it is actually kind of going back. Some people might say it's going back a little bit. I think it's more of a reflection that we've done a lot of minimal design of recent, and now people are looking for things that are just a little bit more detailed. They, in fact, even invented a new file type for these particular icons so that they can animate them. And there's actually a free animation tool that you can download and use that Airbnb developed, and it's very straightforward that you can use. Um, Obviously, this has been in the news recently. Liquid is like, or glass as they're calling it, is like the new design system. I'll wait to see how it pans out. Apple don't often make mistakes, so I'm not going to, reserve judgment on these because I think there's clearly some contrast issues going on here. But this is definitely the next. But let's see where they go with it. But you can, if you look into this, you can begin to see it's a much more, again, luxurious experience. And that when you play around with these things, they feel alive. Like these buttons move with your gestures. Okay. And I think that's going to build a connection with AI products that are going to feel more and more intelligent, that the actual UI is going to actually reflect that with the way it moves and animates. So exciting to see where that comes from. Um, Other things that I've started to notice as well, which is kind of interesting, and it's not necessarily good. Um, so Clio, which is like an online bank, they've just released their new website, which on the whole is super slick. It's full of craft. It's a beautiful piece of work and absolutely screams we are an AI product. And when you come to the home screen at the top here, you get a chat. It's again using blurs. Straight away, you're talking to an LLM here, but they've gone so overboard with using AI tools and AI photography here. I know I'm one to talk, but I think in this particular instance, it's so obvious they're using AI for the photography that we shouldn't forget our humanity in design. We're fundamentally building products for people, and we need to connect with people. And people understand that we're talking to an AI product, but I still need a physical service probably off that thing, and I still need to have an emotion from that thing that I'm using. And this use of photography, I think let's not forget we're humans and remember start using like actual photography and actual things that are real. Uh, Built with AI products. And I think that's the direction we go here. So I think this is just an example where it's just gone too far the other direction, and worth thinking about that. Let's not forget who we're building stuff for. So these are good, minimal, flat design, great. But I think we're going to be seeing a trend which has already started in Airbnb and Apple, and I think we'll see it across the board as well, where we're going to see more craft. It's going to be textual, more micro introductions, products with soul. So, Q&A. Please, uh, I'm willing to, I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions that you've got. Excited to. So please start dropping your questions into the chat. I'll be more than happy to go through them. Right, thank you very much. Let's go up here. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, let's go down here. Can there be a, yeah, well, yes. Yes. So I think that's the first thing that people just exploded on the interweb was a white um, text over a light background isn't going to fly. But I kind of just let's just see what Apple does with this. I cannot believe they would make that mistake. So um, let's just see. Because at the moment, no, it's not going to fly. Uh, how do you make the interactions feel more human when it's exactly a bot or it's made to support human burnout? So So how do you make I think this is the designer's job, basically. Um, UI, like more and more, I think products are and UI design is going to be the fundamentals of it are going to be able to be churned out by like a tool. And there's several tools already on the product that on the market that can do this at least prototyping for you, or they can design out several simple screens for you. Um, but it's the designer's job then to not only research to make sure that is the right thing to do, but then take that output and actually add a human layer to it. And that's what, you're gonna train to do. That is one of the fundamental jobs of a designer is to make something feel human and forget that it's actually an AI tool and begin to, enjoy design and think about how you can make something resonate with a person, and that's your designer's job, without going too deep in how you do it. Um, there we go. Don't you think that icons like will age quickly, or is that a lasting trend? Yeah, they probably will because they look like. So, do you think that icons like Airbnb will age quickly, or will you think that would be a lasting trend? I think it'll be about 2 year trend. Trends do come and go. It's just part of the industry. Uh, s- I think if we go back to like the noughties, icons actually used to look like that, in especially in iPhones and stuff like that, and they've just come back around again. So, um, my advice there is that you can use trends in your design. Just be aware that they are a trend and that there comes with caveats with that. It shouldn't stop you from never using certain types of icons or aesthetics because a particular product at a particular time might need that tone of voice to help deliver that message at that particular time, and it might be right for it. So don't be afraid to use things that are clearly going to trend, but just be aware they come with caveats. Um, do you think only the strong brands can create trends? Well, great question. They will have a huge effect because fundamentally um, we use iPhones. A lot of us use iPhones. You're going to look at this UI, it's going to influence you. But most of the jobs I work on, I don't use native tools. I'm building stuff from the ground up, and what's influencing me is all of the different feeds and inspiration blogs that I follow, and I'm actually gathering information. I'm getting trends and input from several um, different feeds, and I'd also advise to um, not just get influence from, you know, brands or design feeds. Influence should come from every walk of life as a designer. And I think the good designer will be the ones that actually stand out because they have their own voice rather than they can do a trend. So, and if you really look in the right feeds, there will be much more underground themes running that if you're tapped into them, will make you a much more potent designer, I think. So I just have to open up my Instagram. I think one that's really good. I've just been let's see if I can pick it up there. I think one is really, I'm just gonna have to look on my Instagram now because I just get a feed. Da, 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 da. The guy, I'll tell you what I'm doing, who I'm listening to right now, designed by Tom. Oh, I can't find him now. Um, so my advice on blogs and feeds, without my mind going blank right now, is that I've built up a number of different feeds on my Instagram in terms of from not just design in digital design. I've built up like logos or like particular designers I follow, furniture designers, interior design, nature. It's a real mixture, eclectic bunch of stuff that I will research, and it's not all just design, and it's been built up over years. My advice is just look wide, basically, and really spread your net really, really wide in terms of what your influences are. If you just look at your mobile phone and what Apple are doing, you will just look, your designs will just look like Apple. What you need to do as a designer is just have a really, really wide aperture in terms of what you're looking at and how what's feeding into you. And it doesn't just have to be design. Okay. Quite often, I will start off a design exploration with a client talking about what's their favorite car, you know, why do they like this particular thing over another thing. So that's my advice right now. I'm sorry I can't give you some lists because it would take me 5 minutes scrolling my phone. But that would be my advice generally in terms of influence. Wide aperture, doesn't have to be just design. When it comes to mood boards or deciding what colors to use for an app, is using dark colors the most accessible? My dad is visually impaired and he often uses the zoom button paired with dark screen and read text. Okay, so I think it comes down to what is the product you're designing, right? So if you are specifically designing a health product and you know that your demographic is going to be of a certain criteria, you will skew the design more forcibly towards a health looking product with um, larger text and so forth like that. If you are making a product that is going to have a wider appeal, then you will skim what is the most accessible thing down to what is acceptable, basically. And there are levels in terms of where you can design to, and the minimum level is still pretty high, and we would design to that basically. So that's how I would tackle that, that I know I'm doing the minimum I need to do to be an accessible product because I'm designing to a wider audience, which is still would be double A basically in terms for text sizes and contrast, which is what banks use. You can go further than that, but it has such an effect to the design that if you're trying to create a design that is meant to be um, emotional, it affects your emotion, it's going to look contemporary, feels in a bracket that's going to be, you know, I think that you have to make the decision of where you cut your cloth, basically. So I go for like a 2A per heel, basically. That's what I do. But you can gauge and you'll just use your experience to know where you're gonna land at. If, for instance, you're working directly for the NHS or you're designing for a bank, then you'll be going 2A, 3A, basically. Um, Considering humans have been emotionally connecting with animated avatars for decades, 5 years, would you agree that the key to making chatbots more relatable doesn't necessarily rely on them looking? Yeah, I think it's a really interesting scenario. So, I recently interacted with someone building a LLM that or chatbot LLM that was essentially going to be a psychiatrist. And there's several of these products already, and they were looking at creating their own one. And the thing that we discovered with that is that people were more willing to talk to a psychiatrist with just a feed, no animated thing in it, just essentially a chat bot that looked a lot like a WhatsApp chat or a Telegram chat that tell that their most innermost feelings than an actual real person without any kind of essentially animated elements on it or anything like that, that people were willing to open up compared to if they were to talk in front of an actual psychiatrist or an LLM that had a very smooth looking design and lots of animation. So we found that really astonishing and it's actually surprising. But when you think about it, it's not as surprising as it initially showcases itself to be because the LMM isn't judgmental and it's just there to help. mm, as long as you're aware that it's not going to leak any of your information, people are comfortable to tell it anything they want without any of these animations. And that, I think we're going to get a lot of surprises like this in terms of how people interact. Whereas previously we were pretty clear on how things were going to work. Whereas now you're just getting surprised every day how people interact with it. And my first instinct would to be try and design something slick for a psychiatrist when actually something that was pretty basic and pretty straightforward worked really, really well. And that's just we're going to be discovering that regularly, I think. Uh, and okie dokie. Just make sure, just see if I've got anything else. Do you think you need to be very creative person to be in the field? No. I mean, it helps, obviously, but I think there's many different um, roles in design and UX, um, and they're on a essentially a like a imagine a sort of like A to B, and B is super creative, and like A is like super um, really kind of like detail focused, for instance. Uh, Everywhere has a place. I've found people who are clearly super duper creative, and they're very good at a particular part of the project where they're thinking of that curveball idea. But if you need them to design like 16 different journeys, and it's really tight and it really, delivers what the user needs and it's pixel perfect, they can't do it. And you need a different type of designer, a different type of UX person. And one person can't do the other person's job. So I don't think you necessarily need to go, "Oh, I don't think I'm creative, so therefore I can't do this." I don't think that's applicable here. I think there's space for all different types of skill sets to be in this field. Okay, I'm just gonna one more. When it comes to creating mood boards, just on the color thing again, when it comes to creating mood boards and the point on dark colors, the most accessible. Um, One point regarding mood boards is that sometimes you're not always designing for the end product. Sometimes you might be designing for the brand and the tone of voice. And so when you're mood boarding, don't just use UI as the things that should inspire you for your final product. You should be using all different types of inspiration to create your mood boards because yes, your end product is a piece of UI and it might be at a particular point you need it to be as accessible as possible and you will create a design that fits all of those requirements, but you may have had to design something before then that was emotionally connecting to the user, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's the most accessible design. It might be an image, it might be music, it might be all sort a combination of things, it might be animation. And so your mood boards, when you're initially concepting, should have, yeah, all types of experiences on it so that you can inform the narrative leading up to the point. So you can inform what the narrative will look like and how it's delivered leading up to the point when you need to get some information out of someone using classic UI. So I think health. I'm new. Final one. So this is from Krunal. I'm new to UX UI. I'm moving from healthcare to design. A previous experience in graphic designs with. So is it still best decision to move into UI UX from healthcare to design? Graphic design. Coral Draw. So is it still best decision to move in? I mean, I think of all the design disciplines, I think UI UX is just still a really fascinating and exciting place to be. I think it's going to be disrupted and I think it's going to be really challenging. But I think there's still a place for people to um, make a mark in products in this particular field while still being actually enjoying graphic design. So yeah, it will be competitive, but I think it's also I think it is a very interesting and fascinating industry to work in. And if you want to go for it, go for it. Right, here we are. When can we check Healy's out? Or we did say early July, it's August. If you go to the Heal app music, you can sign up for a notification basically for when we go live. Right. I think I am having to Right, I'll just give you the website. No, I'm not going to do that. There we go. Now, I think I need to stop sharing, and I think I am going to hand over to one of my colleagues called Justin, who's going to talk for a little bit. And just before he goes on, thank you for spending the time. I have to say, I am used to talking to clients and stakeholders, but I'm not used to talking to my own screen with a bunch of mysterious people behind there sending me questions. I hope you found it really useful. I was really excited to give this talk, and thank you for turning up. Justin.
Thanks, Vern. That was very fascinating. It's been lovely working with you the last 2 weeks to put together this presentation. You put something really useful for our learners. Today we do have leads joining this session as well. So people that are interested in the program for their insight, and for our new learners, we do offer a masterclass series in AI, and this is um, the third installment, although it's not in any particular order, and we run them throughout the year so that every cohort gets access to live classes. But we also have other topics, including how to use AI to support your user research, and then how to use AI to be a more productive designer. So actually using it within the design process in your day-to-day life as a designer, as opposed to what Bern's been talking to today, which is about designing AI-powered products. But if you're interested, I think Sam has posted some links to follow up with enrollment advisors if you're interested in learning more about the course. But for the learners, we will be posting slides and video on Circle, and I believe anyone who's joined the call will get a recording of the session as well via email. And yep, sorry, I've got a sore throat, losing my voice, but thanks everyone for coming and have a great rest of your day. I think we'll close the call unless Sam wants to add anything else. Thanks again, Bern.
It's been a pleasure, Justin, and thank you everyone for turning up today. I had a blast.
Cheers.